Hello grade 10s and welcome to another video where we're going to deal with a summary of all the financial maths that you need to know for grade 10. Alright, so if you are heading in towards exams and you need to revise this chapter, this will be a good run through of all the types of questions that you can get. Alright, so financial maths. We've got our two formula that you please need to know before you go in. It doesn't get given to you. And that is the simple interest formula where the N is inside the bracket over there, and compound interest where the N is at the top over there. So please note those two formula and that you need to know it off by heart. Okay, so simple interest is the interest that is calculated only on the money invested or borrowed, which is called either the principal amount or the capital of the present value. So your money doesn't get compounded. The interest doesn't get added onto the principal amount. It only works out the interest on the original money that you've put in there. And very, very important to note is that we always use simple interest with hire purchase. So we only use simple interest with hire purchase or when they tell you that it's simple interest. Okay, then we get the compound interest. So this is where your money gets compounded, your interest gets added onto your original amount that you've put in there, and they work out the percentage on that amount. And then the next year, they add the interest again, and then they work out the percentage on the new amount. So it gets compounded onto each other. So the interest is calculated on the principal amount and the interest that is added to the principal amount at regular time intervals. And we always use compound interest with all the other scenarios that we get. Okay, so if it's population growth, if it is where it's just compound interest, what is the other one? Sorry, I'm going to tell you now. Inflation rate, those are all compound interest. Okay, so let's quickly look at the examples that we have over here. Okay, Mr. Modise takes out a loan of 25,000 to buy furniture for his office. He repays the loan over 4 years by equal monthly payments. The interest charged on the hire purchase agreement is 16% per annum on the full amount of the loan over 4 years. Okay, so now very, very important, we do not have a deposit. If we had a deposit, we would first work out the percentage of that amount, deduct it, and only work out the amount or the interest onto the balance of that amount. So we won't include the deposit. Okay, so but over here, Mr. Modise had no deposit. So he wants to borrow 25,000 Rand. And he pays the loan over 4 years. I always like to make a little summary for myself. By equal monthly payments, the interest charge on the hire purchase agreement. So immediately when you see HB agreement, it's simple interest of 16% per annum on the full amount of the loan over 4 years. Okay, so over here, calculate the total amount that must be repaid over the 4 years. So in our formula, A is equal to P, the principal amount, 1 plus 0.16 times by 4 years. Okay, so very, very important. That's 16%. Although some of the calculators you can put in a percentage, just please make sure that you get the same answer as me then if you insert it as a percentage. But we normally write it as a fraction or then a decimal, 0.16. Okay, so just like that into your calculator, 25,000, 1 plus 0.16 times by 4, and that would give you 41,000 Rand. Just please take note. So if it was 8%, lots of you make the mistake and then say it's 0.8. So rather put 8% in your calculator, 8 over 100, and see that it gives you 0.08. All right. Okay, now number B, the monthly repayments. So remember, this is the total amount that he needs to repay now, loaded on with the interest. So this is what he borrowed, loaded on will give you 41,000. So if you just had to work out the interest, only the interest, I know this is not part of the answer here, but just to show you that you would take 41,000 minus the 25,000. So the question could be, how much extra, how much more did he pay for the, what did he buy now again? Furniture. How much more did he pay for the furniture than just buying it cash? Then he paid 16,000 Rand more. So it's always best to buy cash. Cash is king. But if you can't, just know that there will be an amount added onto it, obviously, because they're taking a risk and they are being nice to you by giving you the furniture and you pay it off, etc., etc. Okay, but the actual question was, what was the monthly repayments? So you take that 41,000 and you divide it by 4 years with 12 equal installments. So 4 times 12 gives you 48 months that you can pay it off. Remember, you pay it off monthly. So if you take 41,000 divided by 48, and it gives you that you're going to pay back 854 Rand,17 per month. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Compound interest. All right, example 1. 5,000 Rand is deposited into a savings account at a bank for 5 years. So let's highlight all our given information. The interest is paid at 15% per annum compoundedly. Calculate the interest earned after 5 years. Okay, so you're going to put it into your formula. 1 plus 0,15, all raised to the power of 5. And just like that, you insert it into your calculator. And it should give you 10,056 and 79 rounded off. Okay. Calculate the interest earned after 5 years. So just the interest. So if they ask you for just the interest, not the total amount that they would have. So please look at your question. What are they actually asking? They're asking you to calculate the interest. So it's going to be 10,056 minus that 5,000. So only the interest would be 5,056. So this person doubled his interest amount, or doubled his investment over 5 years, basically. Okay. Example 2, determine which scheme would provide a better option. Either A, 7,000 at 10% per annum compounded interest over 4 years, or B, 7,000 at 12% per annum simple interest over 4 years. So can you see that because this one is simple interest, they've given a higher rate than the compound interest over there. Okay, so let's quickly, so I'm going to break it up in two. So A is compound interest. A is equal to 7,000, 1 plus 0,1, and it's all raised to the power of 4. Number B, it's simple interest. So 7,000, 1 plus 0,12 times 4. So over here, for the compound interest, if you insert it into your calculator correctly, sorry, that one doesn't look so nice, 10248,70. And for the simple interest, 10360. So although it's a very small margin, the best one would be actually to go for the simple interest at the higher rate of 12%. All right, example 3. Tsepo's father deposited money into a savings account on his 17th birthday. The interest paid on the savings was 11% compound interest. On his 21st birthday, Tsepo withdraws the accumulated amount of that. How much money did his father deposit into the savings account? So can you see that we've got the future amount? We've got A's value over here. So this is A's value. We are looking for P, the present amount. How much did he presently put into the account to give me an answer of 9867,46? Okay, so in your formula, because it's compound interest, we're going to use we're going to look for the principal amount, and we've got the future amount. So it's 9867,46. Oh, sorry, there goes our bell. Is equal to P1 plus 0,11, and it's all raised to the power. So whenever they give you two dates or two years or two ages, you just you subtract the bigger one from the smaller one, or the smaller one from the bigger one. Sorry, that makes more sense. So 21 minus 17 gives you 4 years. So it's all raised to the power of 4. Okay, now this answer over here, you can go divide away all raised to the power 4 to cancel that out to get your P alone. But what you do on the one side, you have to do on the other side. And if you do that, you get that your P value, the amount that the father put in originally, was 6,500 Rand rounded off. Let's look at calculating the interest rate. So let's look at what has been given. 20,000 Rand is invested in shares on the stock market, and after 8 years, the shares are sold for 52,000 Rand. Calculate the simple interest rate that would provide the same return, and calculate the compound interest rate. Okay, so in both of the scenarios, we've got the present amount, we've got the future amount, and we know that it's 8 years. So in our formula, if you are working with A, the simple interest, you've got 52,000 is equal to 20,000. 1 plus the interest we don't know, and we know that it's times by 8. Then you're going to divide away with 20,000 each side to get rid of that and to open up your brackets. And if you do that, you get 2,6 is equal to 1 plus I times 8. Then you're going to subtract the loosey-goosey term over there, and you get 1.6 is equal to I times 8. Then you're going to divide by 8 on each side, which gives you 0,2 is equal to the interest. And remember, in the beginning, we wrote the interest as a decimal always, and now we just need to remember to times our interest with 100 to give us the percentage. So the interest is 20% for a simple interest. Okay, if we look at number B, calculate the compound interest. Sorry, I'm going to insert the future amount is equal to 20,000, 1 plus I, all raised to the power 8. First step, divide by 20,000 on each side, and you get 2.6, and your bracket there is all raised to the power 8. Then, on your calculator, you're going to do the 8th root. Just like square and square root, the 8th root will cancel that to the power 8. But what you do on the one side, you need to do on the other side. And in your calculator, you have to press Shift and this button over here. And on the top there, oopsie, no, it's not that button, sorry. The X to the power block. Because if you press Shift and that button, then you can go insert a 8 and you can insert the 2.6. And then you get 1,12686. Keep your decimals because when we, or keep it into your calculator maybe at least, 1 plus I, then you subtract 1 and you get 0,12686. Keep a few decimals, and then at the end times it by 100, and then we can round off it. We'll give you 12.68 sorry, 686%. Rounded off will give you 13%. All right, so let's look at the loan repayments. Okay, so this is your hire purchase agreement. So remember, we did one at the beginning, but it had no deposit. So over here, it has a deposit now. So Andy buys a television set for 14,800. He pays 2,200 Rand in cash as a deposit, and the balance is paid through a hire purchase loan agreement with an interest rate of 16%. The loan is repaid over 3 years. Okay, so always use a highlighter as you are busy working and highlight all the information that's evident or that's prevalent that we have to use. Okay, so hire purchase, remember, is simple interest always. Okay, so yeah, they gave you the deposit as an actual amount. So we're going to deduct those two. If they set you that the deposit was, let's say, 10%, then you always work it out on the original amount. 10% of that gives you what? And then if it gives you that, you deduct it. Okay, but that's now not the case. They've given it to me as an actual amount. Okay, so let's look at the questions. Calculate Andy's monthly repayments. So they jump quite strongly into the question. So we want to know the balance. Why? Because that is what we're going to work the interest on. So the balance is going to be 14,800 minus the 2,220, which gives you 12,580, and this is the amount that you are going to borrow. So A is equal to 12,580. 1 plus the interest written as a decimal times by the number of years, simple interest, the years is at the bottom, and that should give you 18,618,40. But let's look at the question. Calculate Andy's monthly repayments. So if Andy pays it off over 3 years and each year represents 12 months or has 12 months, let's rather say the monthly payment would be equal to, if you take that amount divided by 36, will give you 517,18 rounded off per month. Okay, now they say to you calculate the total amount of money paid over 3 years, the total amount, calculate and his monthly repayment. So that's the monthly repayment. Calculate the total amount of money paid over 3 years. So the total amount of money paid over 3 years is this 18,600. So we didn't have to calculate it. And then they say calculate how much Andy paid more on the hire purchase agreement than buying this TV set cash. So remember, cash was 14,800. So let's write that down there. Okay, what did Andy pay? Andy paid the deposit. So actual amount paid is 2,200 plus the amount that Andy paid off over the 3 years. And if you add those two together, you get 20,818,40. But remember, they ask you what is the amount that Andy paid more for it on hire purchase than buying it cash. It's like we say, cash is king. You always want to do cash, but not everybody can always do cash. So it's 20,818,40 minus what you could have paid for it cash if you had the cash. So how much more did you pay for it, dear old Andy? 6,018.40 cents. All right, let's quickly look at inflation. Inflation is the average increase in the cost of goods and services over a period of time. The rate of inflation is given as a percentage per annum. Always use the compound interest formula for inflation. Very important. Okay, so inflation as we know it, long back, I used to pay, I remember when we paid 6 Rand a loaf of bread. And nowadays it's 15, 16 Rand a loaf of bread. Okay, so a loaf of bread at a local supermarket costs 15 Rand 40. The estimated average inflation rate over the next 25 years is 7% per annum. Calculate how much you will pay for a loaf of bread in 25 years' time. So A, we've got the present amount is 15 Rand 40, and it's over 7%. All raised to the power 25. So remember, inflation is always compound interest. So the estimation for bread in 25 years' time will be 83 Rand and 58 cents. You can never imagine that, but it's going to get to that one of these days. Your kids, sorry, I got interrupted there. So, but your kids will pay 83 Rand a loaf of bread. So it's just, you can't imagine it, but it's coming. Okay, and then how much did a loaf of bread cost 25 years ago if the average inflation rate over the last 25 years was 10.8%? So I know there's a formula that you can use if you're working backwards, but I just stick to my original formula. A is equal to P, 1 plus I, all raised to the power N. And I just switch around to see what is the present and what is the future. So if you think of this, how much did a loaf of bread cost 25 years ago? So let's quickly think. Here is your granny or your mom 25 years ago as a spring chicken. Then 25 years ago, if the average inflation rate over the last 25 years was 10.8%. So then it went up, and now we want to know how much a loaf of bread will cost into the future. So you pretend you go back in time. So the present amount, we don't know. How much did a loaf of bread cost 25 years ago? So the present amount, we don't know. But we know, we have to use this amount, we know that a loaf of bread now costs 15 Rand 40. So if you do this, if you switch it around, then you don't have to use other formulas. Although I know in grade 11, we rather teach you the new formula. But for grade 10, I think just this way around is so much easier, although you might differ from me. Okay, so presently, if you are back in time, you always go to the earliest time. Presently, we don't know what the amount is, but the future amount, the F over here, is 15 Rand 40. So how much was it 25 years ago? So we're going to have 15 Rand 40. The future amount is 15 Rand 40. P we don't know. And it's all raised to the power 25. So easy peasy, you're just going to divide this away on both sides. So 1 plus 0,108, all raised to the power 25. And that will cancel out, and that will give you the present amount as you have it 25 years ago. And that will give you 1 Rand and 19 cents. Okay, but we know that inflation rate didn't go up that hectically, but if it had, then 25 years ago it would have been 1 Rand 19. So just again with number B, you go back in time. You say you go 25 years ago, you pretend that you were still a spring chicken. For some, you haven't been born. If you think of it in your parents' term, your mum is at school still, or she would have been maybe at school, just finished with school. So presently, we don't know what the amount is, but the future amount, if you look into the future at 2023, you can see that the cost of a loaf of bread will be 15 Rand 40. And you just switch it around, looking for the P, having the future amount, and then you get it like that. Let's look at population growth. Again, always use the compound interest formula for population growth. All right, it says a town has a population of 65,320. The average growth of the population is 8.2% per annum. Determine the expected population of the town in 20 years' time. Okay, so very, very easy. We are looking for the future amount. So we're going to use the compound interest formula, which is 0,082, all raised to the power 20. So your future amount will be Okay, will be 315,930 rounded off because it is people. Okay, then example 2, a game farm had a herd of 64 impala. The manager calculated that the farm could sustain a herd of 250 impala at once. And once the herd has reached 250, he would be able to sell the surplus stock. A herd of impala normally grows at 17% per annum. Calculate how long it will take you. So we are looking for the number of years for the herd to reach 250. So the future amount is 250, what we are wanting. We've got presently 64 at 0.17%, all raised to the power n. So normally you would need some information that we only deal with in grade 12 over here, but you can guess how long it will take you. So 250 divided by 64 gives you 3.9, because that's the first step. Hey, you would divide by 64 on each side. Then you get 1 plus 0.17, all raised to the power n, which you can simplify to 1.17. So then it's just a guessing game. 1.17, if we say to the power 2, gives you 1.3. So it can't be 2. So if you say 1.17, all raised to the power 5. So 1.17, all raised to the power 5 gives you a number closer to 3.9, but not yet, gives you 2.19. So let's guess a little bit higher. 1.17, all raised to the power of 10 gives you 4.8, so that's too much. 1.17 all raised to the power of, let's say, 7. All raised to the power 7 will give you 3. Then 1.17 all raised to the power 8. 1.17 all raised to the power 8 gives you 3.5, which is now closer to what we want, 3.9. 1.17 all raised to the power 9 gives you 4. Gives you 4. So can you see that it's between these 2 years? So it's between 8 and 9 years. Okay, so if you get this and you need to work out the compound interest for the number of years, I hardly doubt that your teacher will ask you something like this, because it's not in the syllabus. It only comes into play in grade 12, but then you can do the guessing game and see which one gives you the closest answer. Okay, then exchange rates. I always use the pirate method. If you want to look at my ratio, rate and proportion video where I speak about the pirate method. But I'm going to show you how I do it. International trade and world markets often price goods like gold, platinum, oil price and service in the US dollars. When the rand weakens against other currencies, the cost of importing goods and services to South Africa increases. So, for example, 4 people travel to London and have supper at a restaurant. The current exchange rate is £1 is 19 Rand 16, and the cost of the meal per person is £45. So we always write down what we have. £1 is 19 Rand 16, and the cost per person is £45. So let's just quickly work out the cost per person. So how I do it is I write down what I have, write down what I want underneath the rands under the rands, the pounds under the pounds. Then you start at the bottom and you divide up times down. And then you see that a meal is 862 Rand 20 cents per person. And now, remember, it's 4 people sitting there. Calculate the total cost of the bill if they added a 10% tip on the total amount of the bill as well. So we're going to times this answer by 4. Do you agree? Why? Because there's 4 people at the restaurant. 3448.80. And then they want you to add a 10% tip on the 3448.80. So you're going to work out what is 10%, which is 10 divided by 100, which is 0.1. What is 0.1 of 3,400? And then you get that the meal plus the tip will be 344 Rand 88 cents, which gives you a total of 3793,68. Cool. Exchange rates, very easy. Okay, now we get to the grade 10 syllabus, which we haven't really done in grade 8 and 9. I know that we have done some of these with some of our grade 9s just to push them a little bit, but not everybody has done this. So, the timelines, deposits and withdrawals. So, as you can see, there's a plus and a minus over there, which represents the adding and subtracting of money into an investment. Okay. Let's look. A timeline can be used to provide a visual representation of a problem when there are several deposits and withdrawals and changing interest rates. The timeline helps to summarize information in a structured and orderly way. Okay, so for example 1, I'm going to represent the timeline here at the top, and then I'm going to do the actual sum here in the block. Okay, so for us, with the curriculum that we do, we ask to draw up a timeline for 3 marks. Okay, so we say this is the information, represent your answer by the use of a timeline. Okay, so let's have a look. A savings account is opened and 7,000 Rand is deposited. 3 years later, 3,000 Rand is added to the savings. 2 years after the second deposit, another deposit of 8,500 Rand is made. Calculate the total amount accumulated in the savings account after 8 years if the interest paid is 9.5 per annum compounded annually. So I always ask my students, which stayed solid? Which one didn't change at all? Can you see that it is the interest that didn't change at all? The things that did change was the amount put in and out. All right, so let's start with our timeline. How many years was it? It was for 8 years. Now, people, a timeline, you always start with term 0. Very, very important. And then each term here represents a year. So you write it up like that. And after doing this, you'll see it makes much more sense. It's easier to understand. Okay, so let's start. A savings account is opened and 7,000 Rand is deposited. So here at term 1, we have 7,000 Rand that we opened it with. 3 years later, so I always talk about bunny hops. 1, 2, 3 years later, 3,000 Rand is added to the savings account. So I'm going to plus 3,000 Rand. 2 years after the second deposit, another deposit of 8,500. So from here, the second deposit, it's 2 years, another plus 8,500 Rand has been added. Calculate the total amount accumulated in the savings account after 8 years at 9.5% per annum. So very important. Just also write here somewhere what your interest rate was on your timeline at 9.5%, which is also 0.095 if you want to represent it as decimal. Okay, so now we're going to start with the actual sum. This helps you to create the sum and how to draw it up. So the future amount will be, we started off with 7,000 Rand. Now that 7,000 Rand was invested at 0.095, and that was there for the whole term, for the whole investment period. So I always say from 7,000 that you've got there, how many bunny hops all the way to the end? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bunny hops. So I'm just going to delete that so I don't mess over my timeline there. So it's all raised to the power 8. Then we added 3,000 Rand. That was also invested at 0.095 because remember the interest rate didn't change. And how long did it stay in there for? How many bunny hops to the end? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bunny hops. So it's all raised to the power 5. And then the last deposit that was made was 8,500, also at 0.095. And how many bunny hops to the end from here? 1, 2, 3 bunny hops, all raised to the power 3. And now you're going to put this all into your calculator at once to get your answer. And your answer should give you, if you put it all in correctly, 30,350,72. Okay, so let's look at one where we're also adding and now subtracting money into the account. And yeah, so exactly the same as the previous one, we just withdrew as well some money. Okay, so Claire deposits 3,000 Rand into a fixed deposit savings account at the beginning of the year. After 2 years, she deposited another 2,000 Rand into the account, and 1 year later, she needed 4,500 and withdraws it from the account. Calculate how much money she will have at the end of 5 years if the account paid an interest of 8% per annum compounded annually. Okay, so what are we going to do? We always start with term 0. And because it's 5 years, we're always going to go all the way up to that amount, term 5. Okay. Then our interest was fixed at 0.08, or you could have written 8%. And then let's go fill in the amount. So Claire deposited 3,000 Rand into the fixed deposit account savings at the beginning of the year. After 2 years, so 2 years, she deposited another 2,000 Rand. And then 1 year after that, so just 1 year on, she withdrew, she needed 4,500 Rand. Okay, and that is everything on there. We've got the interest, so I would normally give 1 mark for the interest, 1 mark for the time, the terms written down, and then 1 mark for your amounts added and subtracted. Okay, so let's start. A is equal to, we start with 3,000, the first amount, 1 plus 0.08, all raised to the power. How many bunny hops to the end? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bunny hops. Then we add 2,000 Rand, 1 plus 0.08, also at 8%. And how many bunny hops? 1, 2, 3 bunny hops. And then we subtracted, so very important, withdrew 4,500 Rand. And that 4.5, also not only do you withdraw just the 4.5, you withdraw the interest that you would have accumulated on that 4.5 for how many years? 1, 2 bunny hops. And if you put that into your calculator, you will get that you only have left 1,678.61 Rand. Okay. Now we're going to look at the timelines where we're changing the interest rate. Okay, so the interest rate seldom stays the same for a very long period, and it's quite common for interest rates to change periodically, especially if money is left in a savings account for a long period of time. So we can't just accept that it won't change. The interest rate does change as we go, especially over a long period of time. So with this one, 50,000 Rand is invested for a period of 12 years. Now, the interest rate is 7% per annum compounded annually for the first 3 years. The interest rate is then increased to 8.5% per annum compounded annually for the next 4 years. At this stage, the interest rate is increased at 10% per annum compounded annually for the last 5 years. Calculate the total value of the investment at the end of the 12-year period. Okay, so we're going to start. We're going to do a timeline to help us visually represent our question and to help us with our answer. And term 12. Okay, so let's go fill in the missing information. We know that it's going to be A is equal to 50,000 because that's what originally was invested. And then we're going to quickly, and the best is I'm going to highlight the different stages of the interest. So the interest rate is 7% per annum compounded annually for the first 3 years. So for the first 3 years, I'm going to highlight it. And then I'm going to write, that was 7%. So it's 0,07. Let's just try and get another color here. Then they say to you the interest rate is then increased to 8.5% compounded annually for the next 4 years. So for the next 4 years, 1, 2, 3, 4. The interest rate then increased to 0.085 for the next 4 years. At this stage, the interest rate is then increased to 10% compounded annually for the last 5 years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that's left. Okay, so that would be 0, let me just do that, 0,10% or 0.1 for the last 5 years. Calculate the total value of the investment at the end of the 12-year period. Okay, so now, let me just get another color. So you're going to say, this 50,000 was invested at 1 plus 0,07, all raised to the power 1, 2, 3 for 3 years. Then that is going to be times by 1 plus 0,085 for the next. And now I want you to look carefully. You have to start at the end where you stopped your bunny jump. That is where you're going to start your bunny jump again. Okay, you can't miss a year. So from there, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 for the next 4 years. And that gets timesed with 1.0,10, all raised to the power. So from your previous bunny jump hop, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all raised to the power 5. And that you're going to insert into your calculator to get you all the interest loaded onto that same amount of 50,000 Rand. And that gives you a very nice amount of 136,711.08 Rand. Okay, so you've got this. So when the interest rate changes, you multiply. So that's why this little money key is over there. Okay, when you add and subtract withdrawals and deposits, you add in between and subtract, as it is subtraction sometimes as well. Okay, so now we get a combo question. This is what I like to call a combo question, and I think this is only in grade 11, although I do this with my students already in grade 10. So what happens now if you've got deposits and withdrawals together with the changing of interest rates? Okay, so let's start. A savings account is opened with an initial deposit of 13,500. 2 years later, a second deposit of 25,700 is made. 5 years after the account was opened, 18,400 Rand is withdrawn from the account. The interest rate for the first 3 years is 9% per annum annually. The interest rate then decreased to 8% per annum compounded annually for the remaining period. Calculate the balance in the savings account at the end of 8 years. So let's try and represent this on our timeline. So term 1 all the way to term 8. Okay, why? Because that's fixed, 8 years. Then they say to you, okay, so we started off with 13,000. 500. 2 years later, a second deposit of 25,700 was made. I'm just going to put a dot there so that I know it's term 2. 5 years after the account was opened. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years after the account was opened. 18,400 is withdrawn from the account. Okay. Now, the interest rate for the first 3 years is 9%. So again, let me just highlight with a different color. The interest rate for the first 3 years over there is 9%, so 0.09. Then is 9% compounded annually. The interest rate is then decreased to 8% compounded annually for the remaining period. So for the remaining period, let me just do it in another color. And I always break it up like this, is 0.08. Okay, so that is your timeline to help you, guide you to your answer. All right, now you will have to break your sum up into however many times the interest rate changed. Okay, so I'm going to say that again. You need to break up your sums into however many parts, or you're going to break it into the amount of times the interest rate changes. That's how many parts you're going to have. Okay, so we started off. We're going to have this as our first sum. That is at the end of term 3. We have to break it up because there's an interest rate change. So we have to stop it over there. So A is equal to 13,500 at the interest rate of 0.09, all raised now with the bunny hops. It's going to end over here. So the bunny hops is 1, 2, 3, all raised to the power 3. Then we added 25,700 at 9%, and the bunny hops would just be from here, 1, now I've confused myself there with that. Let me just take all these bunny hops away. No, 0.09. And let me just rather erase this bunny hop. Don't want to erase let me just rather highlight again. Sorry, ne? Okay, so we pretend that it ends at term 3. And this bunny hop will just be from term 2 to term 3. So how many bunny hops to the end? Only 1. So can you see from here it was 1, 2, 3. That's why it's raised to the power 3. And here it's only raised to the power 1 because it's 1 bunny hop. Then you're going to calculate that answer. And it's going to give you 45,495 and 89 cents. Now, for the next sum, we go into our next period where the interest rate changed to 8%. So now we're going to start off a new sum and say A is equal to, now what am I investing now? I'm investing that 45,495 and 89 cents. And that is there from the beginning. So when you do a bunny hop, you have to bunny hop from term 3. So you can't start from there. It's from here, which will give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So that 45,000 you invested here at the end of this term. Now you invested from here to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that will be for 8%, all raised to the power all raised to the power of 5. Then we subtracted 18,400 And that is raised all the way from here. We're going to bunny hop to the end. Sorry, 1, 2, 3 bunny hops. So that is for 3 years. And now this will be your final amount that you will have at the end of the 8 years. 43,669,69. So can you see you need a break here because your interest rates changed. And we've got deposits going in and out. So we have to break it up into 2 parts. So you break it up into 2 parts. Why? Because there's 2 interest rate changes happening. So over here, you're going to treat this as a separate sum. Then you're going to reinvest it here at the end of term 3 into your next part at 8%. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Okay, and then I'm going to try and attach, I'm sure I'll get it right, all the exercises that you can practice on these sums. So I'm going to load up now at the end of my video also a PDF on all the types of questions that you can get, exercises that you can do. So if you just pause the video there, and I'm going to do it together with the memo, so you can just have the questions and the memo at hand for your practice. So I really hope that it helped, and that you are well equipped to do finance. It's really not as bad as some people always think. As long as you do your timelines, you always start from term 0, and you do your little bunny hops on the way. Okay, thank you so much for watching Grade 10s. Hope you have a wonderful day further. Cheers, bye-bye.